All entertainment is subjective, but none more so than comedy. What makes me laugh might not make you laugh. What makes me uncomfortable might not make you uncomfortable. Everyone, whether they're willing to admit it or not, has their own biases, has their own preferences, and has an invisible line already drawn in the sand that cannot be crossed and that you will not know is crossed until it is. This is why a comedian's ability to read the heat of the moment, to read their audience, to understand culture, and to adapt and improvise, often on the fly, is so important. They are all tools, like a spatula or a pair of tongs or a butcher's knife is to a chef. And much like any chef, a comedian has to know how to properly use these tools so that he doesn't hurt himself. And also so that if he does, he can get right back up again. Just throw a bandage on it, move on, it's all good, let's finish service. Tenacious D hurt themselves fairly recently. And that's fine. That happens. It sucks. But hey, throw a bandage on it, and let's get the show back on the road. The problem is, they've decided they're not gonna do that. This appears to have been the joke that killed Tenacious D. Now, in order to fully dissect and understand how a joke could be so fatal to Tenacious D of all bands, we first need to talk a little bit, just a little bit, about some recent political events that some may find uncomfortable to talk about, that some may find disturbing, and I understand that. We are going to stay away from the super heavy political territory, from the super gory details. This isn't suddenly going to turn into an episode of Pod Save America or some crazy MAGA conspiracy theorist podcast, but, you know, we do need to talk about this a little bit, because there is a domino effect, and we can't just ignore the big domino because we want to here. One collapsing absolutely led to the other. On July 13th, at a campaign rally just outside of Butler, Pennsylvania, an assassination attempt was made upon the life of former American president and current Republican nominee for president, Donald J. Trump. 2 audience members, along with Trump himself, were injured in the incident, and unfortunately, one Corey Comparator was killed shielding his wife and his 2 daughters from gunfire. And the immediate reaction, universally, from people watching at home was one of complete, utter shock and appall and disgust and terror. And this tragedy was something that just slightly more than 24 hours later, Kyle Gass decided to joke about at a concert in Sydney, Australia. For additional context, it was Kyle Gass's birthday, and a weird robot creature brought out a cake on stage for Kyle Gass to blow the candles of, and Jack Black can be heard in footage saying, "Make a wish." And Kyle Gass can be heard responding after blowing out his candles, "Don't miss Trump next time." Yeah, I'm by no means an expert, but too soon? Maybe? I think so. Yes, comedy is subjective. Yes, comedy is supposed to be kind of extreme and edgy sometimes. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable and blah, blah, blah. Everything that the quote in the beginning of this video said. But also, sometimes, again, lines are drawn in the sand. And I think that making fun of a tragedy a day after it happened, too soon. It's in poor taste. It's inappropriate. And unfortunately, though Tenacious D have fumbled the ball, they're not really too interested in immediately picking it back up. They've burned themselves, but they're not willing to jump back on the line to finish service. As a statement from Jack Black reads, I was blindsided by what was said at the show on Sunday. I would never condone hate speech or encourage political violence in any form. After much reflection, I no longer feel it is appropriate to continue the Tenacious D tour, and all future creative plans are on hold. For the time being, for the foreseeable future, that's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's the joke that killed the Grammy Award-winning comedy metal band, Tenacious D. Kyle Gass, to his credit, did initially try to apologize, writing, I don't condone violence of any kind in any form against anyone. What happened was a tragedy, and I'm incredibly sorry for my severe lack of judgment. But the damage was already done, the tour was already cancelled, and Gass was dropped by his talent agency, Green Talent, as well, in the aftermath. Alright, now that we all understand why and how all of the dominoes fell in the way that they did, now we can really start to talk about the joke that killed Tenacious D. Specifically, I kind of want to talk about how people responded the way they did and how Tenacious D responded the way that they did, because when I look at and think about how everyone kind of approached this scandal and this controversy, I see and hear a whole lot of fucking hypocrisy. The first of these hypocrisies come from rock and metal listeners as a whole, but more specifically those who are maybe more right-wing or conservative-leaning, and also those who would very happily, proudly, defiantly scream, fuck cancel culture, separate the art from the artist no matter what, and freedom of speech no matter what, at the top of their lungs. In my experience here on the Metal Meltdown, people will scream these things at the top of their lungs, usually in defense of a more controversial or problematic artist or scene or album or whatever. They will say these things in defense of C.J. McMahon from Die Hard is Murder for making weird transphobic comments. They will say these things in defense of Ronnie Radke, a well-documented, not great person. They'll even say this in defense of nationalist, socialist black metal, literally Nazi metal. They'll say this in defense of somebody like Varg Kearns from Burzum, a convicted murderer, a man who plotted terror attacks from prison, a man who has identified as a neo-Nazi on several occasions and enjoys being called a neo-Nazi. But when it comes to this particular incident and these particular comments from Kyle Gass, suddenly things change. Suddenly there are calls to boycott Tenacious D from more right-wing, conservative-leaning rock and metal listeners. And some of these people who would scream, fuck cancel culture, separate the art from the artist, and freedom of speech no matter what, suddenly these people are just not so vocal anymore. Interesting. It's almost as if, and I don't know, call me crazy here, a lot of you don't actually care about cancel culture or separating the art from the artist or freedom of speech unless you can use it as an argument to defend one of your shitty right-leaning bands. Interesting, huh? Now, personally, I feel if you're going to argue fuck cancel culture no matter what, separate the art from the artist no matter what, freedom of speech no matter what, then that's it. It means no matter what. You can't stand up for Varg Kearns and then also not stand up for Kyle Gass. The second of these hypocrisies is coming directly from the Tenacious D camp and crew, more specifically from Jack Black himself. Now, I can totally understand and sympathize with the desire to maybe hunker down for a bit, get a little quiet, go on a little bit of a hiatus following such an incident, following such a controversy, but also, was it necessary to just kind of like totally betray and arguably backstab your friend and collaborator of 30 years in the process? I don't know, I don't feel that was necessary, I don't feel that was cool. And PR is a big component of why Jack Black did what he did and brought Tenacious D, for the time being, to an end. Kyle Gass has like maybe 5% of the net worth that Jack Black has. Kyle Gass is a comedian, a musician, a reputable one. But Jack Black is a full-blown icon and celebrity. The average person, frankly, is more likely to recognize him as Po from Kung Fu Panda, or as Bowser from the Super Mario Bros. Movie, than they would as the guy from Tenacious D, whereas Kyle Gass is most likely to be recognized as the guy from Jack Black's comedy metal band. Sure, both of these men have a lot to lose in the wake of an incident and of a controversy and scandal like this, the key difference being that Kyle Gass has already lost a lot of what he has to lose, and Jack Black hasn't lost anything, but he stands to lose way more. Like, simply excusing the incident as a mistake and persevering is not an option. If he wants to be in Kung Fu Panda 5 or the fucking Minecraft movie or Jumanji 3 or whatever else have you, then that means simply not condoning political violence is not enough. He needs to end Tenacious D. At least I'm sure that's what some Hollywood agent is telling him. And in the process, Jack Black isn't just betraying his friend, he's betraying a lot of things that Tenacious D has said and done in the past. Tenacious D's music and comedy is centered around a few things, primarily hard rock, heavy metal, singer-songwriter cliches, a few, like, raunchy tidbits of humor here and there, a few nasty nuggets, some dick jokes, some sex jokes, some fart jokes, nothing too risque or gross, but, you know, it's there. Also, the power of friendship. The power of friendship is literally a massive theme in Tenacious D's music. Literally. I think there's an irony to making friendship such a big part of your music and then also going, yeah, fuck my friend, I've got to go film Kung Fu Panda 5. It's also worth noting that Jack Black, as a comedian, should understand that comedy is sometimes supposed to be a little provocative. It's sometimes supposed to touch upon issues that people aren't willing to talk about, and sometimes it is supposed to offend and upset people. It's certainly something he has understood all of his life, having starred in edgy, provocative, controversial films like Shallow Hal and Tropic Thunder. Now, to be fair, Tenacious D have never been an explicitly political band, and therefore commenting on the assassination attempt in any capacity, but especially making a joke about it, is gonna turn some heads. But, simultaneous to that, even Tenacious D and even Jack Black understands that you can have edgy political commentary, you can even depict political violence within your music and within the stuff you use to promote your music. Case in point, Tenacious D have like a cartoon music video that they used to promote their previous album, which has them dressing up as Klansmen, sneaking into the White House, and assaulting Donald Trump Jr. And it's worth noting Tenacious D are not alone in this camp. GWAR very famously have like a running gag where they murder politicians on stage, everyone from Nancy Pelosi to Ronald Reagan to Barack Obama to Joe Biden and also Donald Trump. And with Kamala Harris now apparently running for president, I'm guessing she might be next on the literal chopping block for GWAR. And to take it a step further, let's look at Municipal Waste and The Only Walls We Build Are Walls of Death merch, which shows Donald Trump literally shooting himself in the head. Let's talk about Cancer Christ, who openly advocate for the mass murder of pedophiles, cops, and politicians. You don't have to like that all of this is happening, but you do on some level have to accept that it is. GWAR and Municipal Waste and Cancer Christ and tons of other punk and metal and extreme acts are going to continue with this kind of imagery and commentary, and there's not really much that any one person or even movement can do about it. And that includes you, Jack Black. This is something you should understand. I totally understand wanting to distance yourself at the moment, but also I think you could have also just been like, hey, my friend fucked up. Straight up. He fucked up. He did an uh-oh. We're gonna take a break for a bit. We're gonna let things cool down and calm down. But yeah, you know, we don't have hate in our hearts. We don't condone political violence. Kyle fucked up. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna try to move on at a later date. You know, we didn't need to make this, you know, a bigger thing and like literally leave our friend out to die. I don't know, just the thought. I don't know, I think that's kind of fucked up. Maybe not even hypocritical now that I think about it, but definitely fucked up. Definitely fucked up. And the third and final of these hypocrisies, and this isn't really anyone's fault, I should note, but it stems from the very argument of this whole thing just being too soon. For the record, it is. But also, the internet is a deeply unserious place, and there are a lot of people who have critical levels of brain rot. So, maybe it isn't. At bare minimum, they don't think it is. So, yeah. Like, I have seen so many weird memes and comments made and shared about the Trump assassination attempt and everything kind of surrounding it that I would argue in a lot of cases are more ugly and inappropriate than Kyle Gass's dumb little heat-of-the-moment quip. Like, that's not to excuse what Kyle said. I stand by my claim that that is still very inappropriate and in poor taste, too soon. But also, goddamn, y'all are ravenous. Y'all are nuts. Y'all are crazy. And I've seen a few articles from, like, major publications kind of talking about this wild series of events, this current ecosystem sharing all of these memes and spreading all of these memes and comments. But you're not really seeing, like, a lot of people, like, really hunker down and be like, how dare you, in the same way that people are for Kyle Gass. Or maybe people are and I'm just not seeing it. The internet is crazy and algorithms work differently for everyone after all, so be it. But point being is I'm not seeing it, and these memes are crazier. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that's been on my For You page, like on TikTok and Threads and across social media as of late, you know, here you go. Like, that's crazy. That's wild. Some of it's a little funny, I won't lie. But it's still crazy and it's still wild. To be fair, I think that craziness is also why these memes exist right now. Like, this whole situation is just so absurd. And I don't think people really know how to process the absurdity of shit like this anymore, so we just resort to making memes and laughing at it. Like, this was very much the case with January 6th and COVID-19 and even the last two election cycles. Like, we just don't know how to process anything properly anymore. Things have gotten so chaotic and so intense, and there's so much division, and we can only now deal with that, I guess, with just weird, crazy fucking memes. It's not even that memes have become like a coping mechanism. I think that they've become a substitute for a coping mechanism. Like, it's just something we do. Yes, Kyle Gass's comments were ugly and inappropriate, and yes, I would argue maybe a joke was told too soon. Maybe some distance could have been made between the event and the comment. Maybe. Just a thought. But also, like, goddamn, to see people saying that it's ugly and inappropriate and that it's too soon, and then also sharing these memes? Wow. Some of you are hypocrites. Not all of you, especially because I can't prove that the same people giving Kyle Gass shit are also sharing these memes. Not all of them, at least, but some of you realistically probably are hypocrites. Just some of you. Maybe not you, probably you. You got a hypocritical look kind of on your face. Ultimately, though, and here's the real plot twist of the whole video, none of this matters. What ultimately, no pun intended, trumps everything is the realization that our political differences have become so great that they now manifest into real-world political violence on a regular and consistent basis. There is just so much chaos, so much division, so much absurdity on all sides of the political spectrum. No one party or platform or person is to blame. We can argue, if you like, that one might be more to blame than the other, but I don't really want to do that right now. You can, I don't want to. Everything kind of sucks right now. That's the point. And it's in times like this that we need rock and roll, and that we need to laugh a little bit. And I can't really think of another band that would be better at giving us both right now than Tenacious D. But unfortunately, It's just not in the cards, I guess. My hope is that with time, things cool down and calm down and we can return to some kind of civility and normalcy. My hope is that Tenacious D can reconvene and they can make good and they can be friends again and all is forgiven. But alas, the dominoes have fallen. The backs of the camels have been broken by straw. The balls have been fumbled. The hands have been cut and scarred and burnt. And the chef has to leave the line for a bit, maybe forever. We think he just quit the job. I don't know for sure. Only time will tell. A joke of all things has killed a comedy metal band. The world is weird. And I think this is the end of the video. Be safe. Be happy. I love you. Have a great day.